In this particular writing process, the objective is to get students to write with expression. As you know, even older learners sometimes say, it is good, she is pretty, and have that just very basic sentence structure. Then another concern for teachers, particularly teachers of English learners, is that when students make errors in their writing, the question comes, should we correct all of the errors? How much should we correct? How do we correct? And you'll see through this interactive writing process that the teacher, first of all, focuses on positive aspects of the writing, but then looks for common errors across students' writing and conducts mini lessons. This systematic way of providing feedback to students is guaranteed over time to really see significant improvements in their writing. Modeling is an important aspect of this particular writing process, as it is with most learning. It's so true of our students. When we're talking about writing or a project, it really benefits them to see a completed project or an outline of exactly what their assignment should look like. And then creating a storyboard. The teacher modeled a storyboard by selecting the topic, my 5th birthday. And then she drew the steps of her story, what happened during her birthday party. At this point, when students develop their storyboard, then they share orally with a partner their story. And this is a very important part of the process because it helps the student to make sure that things are done in sequential order, because they may do the storyboard where things are a bit out of sequence. So their partner that's listening to the story says, well, what about this or what about that? It also elicits more details. So the student may just want to write it a certain way, but the person who's listening to the story then asks a lot of questions about it. So that prompts more detail for the student. Then the student writes the piece just as they told the story. The teacher then asks them to take their story and to add some excitement to it. And of course, she modeled that first. The first slide here is her first try. We call it the uninspired version. It was my birthday. My friend said happy birthday to me. We had cake. It was good. There was a merry-go-round in the front yard. We rode it. It was fun. I opened presents. I gave my friends candy. It was a great birthday. And then she said, how can I make this much more exciting, much more interesting? So she took each sentence and then she elaborated it for the students to show them exactly how you can use language to create mental images and just to make a story much more interesting. So, for example, on the slide, the first sentence is, it was my birthday. Then she elicited some suggestions from the students, but then she walked through it herself and modeled how she would make that much more interesting. So she threw in some dialogue. Happy birthday, shouted my friends. I couldn't believe it. I was finally 5 years old. I could go to kindergarten. I was grown up. See, notice the use of exclamation marks. It was the day I had been waiting for, and it was finally here. So you can see how one short, simple sentence can really be elaborated to add interest. Once she had modeled that, then the students took their turn doing it. Then they would turn their stories in, and what they did was the teacher took all of the children's stories and read them aloud anonymously. And the teacher pointed out all of the positive aspects. She sort of oohed and awed over certain parts, like, ooh, I really like the way that you described the house. It was tall, dark, scary. And then as she was reading the story, she was taking little notes on common errors. It could be subject-verb agreement. It could be mechanics. It could be any aspect of writing. And then she would use those comments that she had jotted down, that common errors that students had made, and that would be the focus of a mini lesson. Now, there are a number of variations that this process can take on. One would be doing the same sort of process but with an individual dialogue journal, where students write in dialogue journals, come to the teacher, and the teacher talks back and forth with them, modeling what would be, like you might say, wow, you got to go to Golden Corral, but spelled it correctly and used the correct punctuation. So individual dialogue journals are one option. Also, this can be used with expository writing. And if you have a large class and it's older students, they might be able to go through this process with one another, which would be very interesting and enlightening for the students. Once they've learned the process, they could surely help one another, and the teacher might still focus, decide what would be the focus of the mini lessons, but then have students correct one another's work. And then finally, another variation would be to have students blog. Write the very same kinds of writing but in a blog form, and then have students comment and the teacher comment and so forth. So I hope that you will see that using an interactive approach that respects what students bring, focuses on the positive, and above all models exactly what you want the students to do can be extremely beneficial for your students, and I bet you'll see some changes in their writing.